Charles is joining us today on a beekeeping course, as well as Zander. And we're going to open up this concrete hive and have a look how they're doing. It has been a while since we last opened them. And that must have been about 2 months ago, I think. And they were, I'd say, about 70% drawn out. This week they were a little bit grumpy. So we need to check what's going on inside there. Make sure that they're all okay. We're also putting pollen patches in all the hives because there is definitely a dearth. There's not much pollen around. So we want to make sure our queens continue laying so that our hives stay healthy throughout the winter. That also gives them resources in case they don't have enough and just keeps them going. Alright, so as you all know, these concrete hives are pretty heavy. So we've brought our muscle power. So we're going to lift this lid over. We've got the super ready just in case they need space, but I doubt it. We'll just have a look and see. Ready? Okay. And onto the super. Wow, they're looking good, eh? So there's a few hive beetles on there. Don't worry, we've got the solution to that. As you can see here on the outside, quite a lot of hive beetles causing issues here. Okay, and you can see the bees have built a bit of propolis on the outside. There's quite a lot of ants on this hive, so we'll definitely need to put some ant granules in under here just to make sure the ants don't continue causing hassles. Right, so let's begin. As always, we start by just cracking the frames apart. Hear that lovely snapping sound. The hum in this hive is definitely quite a lot more intense than some of the other hives we've checked today. We have informed our neighbors to please go in and be safe. And as soon as we're done, we'll let them know to stay inside for probably the next hour or so. Nice to have lunch inside on a cold day anyway. So, right, so now that they're all loose, I'm going to just bring out one frame that's the sort of least occupied or has least resistance. Sure, that's full of honey. That's the third frame across. Lots of honey on there. A bit of brood on the other side. No sign of the queen. But the other side, as you can see, is just chock-a-block with honey. So I expect the other frames further down will be similar. So let's just, we're just going to place this here in front of the hive. Try not to get it all in the sand.
A comment here from Diego Benjamin. He says, "Hi, Bushveld Bees."
Hi, Diego.
Fantastic. Now, with a situation like this, with if these end up being both being honey, would you pull them out now at this time of the year?
I first want to have a look at the whole hive. I don't like to make a determination until I've looked through all the frames. We want to make sure that there's number one, insulation, which the honey provides. And then obviously it provides food for the bees. So we don't want to take out anything that we don't need to. But we also want to make sure, like I said, this hive was a little bit feisty this week. So there's obviously something bothering them. So we need to make sure that they are not overly stocked with honey and that the queen has space to lay eggs. So yeah, that's a priority. These two frames I'm taking out together because there's a bit of cross-combing happening there. All of that is honey. So I'm not going to worry too much about moving that apart because it's just going to distress them. It's going to open up honey unnecessarily. And so I'm just going to leave that as is. And what we'll do is in spring, when we do our spring maintenance, those two frames will come out and those will be the two frames that we'll replace.
Fantastic.
So it's also about understanding when you can do things and when you can't. Obviously now in winter, you don't want to put unnecessary strain on the bees by taking away all their food.
We've got another viewer from the United States watching, and he says hi.
Hello, welcome from the USA. Excited to have you guys here. So here we can see quite a lot of honey on this frame. And we've got some good brood here, a little bit of larva. There's the queen. Hello, Queenie. Super. That's exciting to see her.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Live across the world.
Lovely. Perfect. So they're obviously very shy. She obviously is going to the darkness. And we'll just have a look and see on the other side there. I don't like to keep a frame with the queen on out too long. So I'm actually going to just pop her straight back in again. It's always interesting to watch how they love to walk together.
Just to clarify, for those that are watching from around the world, what species of bees are these?
Okay, so these are the Apis mellifera scutellata, and these bees are responsible for the Africanized bees. They are quite feisty, they are very good honey producers, but they are quite temperamental, especially in warmer climates. We are here in the Midlands of KZN, which it's a little bit cooler. So they still produce extremely well, but they're not as fiery as when we move them to the north coast, where it's warm and hot most of the year, and the bees there are extremely they like to give us a bit of a hard time. When we move up to those areas, we actually wear 2 bee suits on top of one another, and that keeps us sweating properly. And
Got Colleen, John and Sarah saying hello.
Hello friends, nice to see you guys. Great. So there's a lot of honey in this hive. It's usually by now we would have maybe put a super on before they start building so high on their brood frames. I'd expect we're already sort of 5 frames in, and we've already got 2 fullish frames of
and
brood.
this one here down here is like a little bit
half. So So we probably are going to need to give them at least 1 frame of space in this brood chamber. And it's very important about where you put that frame. There's again another frame full of honey. Well, not full, but quite a majority of honey and very little brood and eggs present there.
Lovely laying pattern, huh?
Yeah, that's a very good one. Okay, so something what I like to show, especially my newer students, if you're battling to see on your frames, and it's very important that you see eggs and larvae, get your phone out and put it on video mode and simply zoom it in. Let's see if we can get it working here for you guys in the light. Here we go. You can see the eggs perfectly. Okay, so that's a really super trick if you are battling to see. Okay, hold on, we're just trying to get it nicely focused.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, so that's a good way for you to see everything that you're doing. Let's place this one back in.
Diego says he's from Cape Town and he's got the Capensis bees.
Those are very special bees. So those bees have learned to live without men. They don't need to be mated in order to lay a fertilized egg. They're able to metamorphosize. So a worker bee can actually become a queen bee over time. And we do get those infiltrating our hives from time to time here in KZN, and they actually cause us quite a lot of hassles because they come into our hives and think that they are the queen and start laying, which is very distressful. These 2 frames we're hooking, and you can see the one is slightly moved over to the other one. So I take them out together so that I can basically start to just lift them apart. There we go. So all of this is honey, guys. Honey and a bit of pollen. Thank you so much. So when I put these back in, I'll actually swap that other one around a bit so that it can lean the other way. Okay, so that's a lot better. Go.
Got a comment here saying he's in Prince Alfred, Cape, in the Cape. You guys have inspired me to be a young beekeeper.
Ah, yay! That's exactly what we aim to do. We want as many of you to become beekeepers as possible. We need more of us around. Guys, we've got so much honey in this hive. There's another 2 frames of nectar and honey, and the last frame is also honey. So what I'm actually going to do, those 2 frames that were slightly cross-combed right on the end that I said we'll wait till spring to do, I'm actually going to take those out now. We're going to replace with 2 frames and move. So these last 4 frames are all honey. I'm going to separate them. I'm going to put 2 on this end, and I'll leave another 2 on that end, and then I'll put 2 new frames in. Okay. So
they say that the honey is also a form of insulation, isn't it?
Yes,
for the winter.
it is. But remember, the concrete hives are much more insulated than a cement hive. So than a wooden hive. So we actually don't need as much insulation. And we often, when we're spinning honey here, our supers go out for cleaning off. So we won't have a shortage of nectar here in our garden. It's more likely that we'll have shortages of pollen.
Fantastic.
So what we want to do, we know there'll be nectar out. We want to give space for the queen to lay eggs, and that's the priority here.
Brilliant.
Okay, so Zander has got us 2 frames there, which is super. And we've also got a pollen patty on standby and a little cloth for the hive beetle.
So even though this hive is rich with nectar, it still hasn't got the pollen that it needs, huh?
No, it doesn't. And although there are eggs, there's not that many in here. Okay, so these 2 I'm going to take out. I'm just shaking the bees off into the hive. Okay, thank you, Zander. Right, and I'm going to place one of these frames on the outer edge. We've got basically brood over here. We've got this frame that's brood on one side and honey on the other side. I'm just going to take all the leaves and goodies that have fallen onto it now off. Okay, and I'm going to actually place this over here. So there's the frame with half brood, half honey, and the bees will stop utilizing that for brood. They'll prioritize it as honey, and they will start building this frame out with the foundation strip. They'll start building that out, and immediately the queen will start laying in there. So we've got brood and honey, blank, and then our brood. Always when you're inserting a frame, make sure that it's on the edge of the brood, never on the outside of the honey. If I put a frame on the outside of the honey, the bees will only move there to start building when they have eaten all of that honey out, because the honey is the outside of their hive. Okay, so by placing it over there, we'll make sure that they have an urgency to build that out as a priority. Right, so now we're going to take one more honey frame from that side, okay, and we're going to place it on the outer edge, creating that barrier of insulation that we spoke about. Okay. Okay, and then again we've got honey frame here, honey frame there. Let's just see, that's also a honey frame. So once again we're going to place our new frame in between the honey and the brood. Okay, so we've essentially got 4 frames with brood here, sorry, 3, 1 blank, 1 half brood and honey, and another honey frame, and we're going to do the same on the other side. So instead of us putting a super on now where the cold is going to be a big issue, we rather are implementing new frames and space in the actual brood chamber. Now the key is, as soon as these new frames are being built out and have got brood in them, we want to shift them to the center of the brood nest, and only when they've got eggs and larvae in them. That way we're replacing the older frames and shifting them to the outer edge whilst moving new frames into the middle. Okay.
That helps you rotate your frames.
That helps rotate the frames. And remember, every time that a bee hatches out of one of those cells, it leaves behind a little bit of a cocoon. And slowly over time, the queen with her big fat bum eventually cannot get her bum into the cell for her to be able to lay an egg. And so that's when the frame will start being utilized for honey instead. And so we don't want that in the middle of our brood chamber. Okay, so now last few things. So we've done all the movement of frames, etc., that we need to make sure that you make the frames nice and tight together so that you've got a nice bit of ventilation on either side. And we did see quite a bit of hive beetle, so we're going to use some of this, just a little cloth. I don't know, I call it a terry cloth. Okay, and what you're going to do is fold this into a small square and place it on the outer edge of the hive where the hive beetle is most likely to be. Okay, and that way it will trap the hive beetle in there, and when you come and do your next inspection you simply throw that away.
How do they get trapped inside the cloth?
They've got little barbs on their legs, and so their legs get hooked and they can't move around. So
Brilliant.
I'm just going to grab a pollen patty now. Okay, so the pollen patty always goes directly above your brood because that's where the pollen would naturally be found. Now these hives are very, very short of pollen, so this is going to work well. You open it up slightly so that they can start feeding on it, and then we're going to put the lid back on. And that's it, we're done. As soon as spring comes, this hive will be ready for a super in no time. Anyone got any questions?
No one at the moment.
No questions. All right, so now we're going to pop the lid on. Thank you. We're just going to brush the bees off. Can we just hold it gently? Brush them off. Okay, and drop it down. Okay, super.
So what's the idea behind the concrete hive?
So the concrete hive is used in a lot of places where there's problems with vandalism. Obviously being a concrete hive, it's very heavy, so you can't easily just steal the hive. They often will use a chain with a lock on it, and the concrete is insulating as well. So it's used here in South Africa in a lot of areas where it gets extremely cold. The concrete hive actually helps to insulate the bees. We have found here that the bees tend to build a lot slower in the concrete hive, but now that they're fully drawn out, hopefully moving into the super will be a lot faster. Anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. I hope you've learned something, and stay tuned to our channel for more information on beekeeping. Subscribe and like and share, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks for your help, guys.
Last question before you go.
Sure.
Here it says, when should you put a pollen patty on your hive?
Whenever there's no pollen available. You need to know what's happening in your area, and by looking in the hive you can see when there is a shortage of pollen. In this hive in particular, we saw very little pollen. Also, often you will see the pollen coming in on the bees' legs while you're doing your inspection, and that was not the case here. So they certainly are short of pollen, and we'll come back in 2 weeks' time, check it again, make sure we clean the bottom of the hive because the crumbs of the pollen do tend to encourage hive beetle. So we need to make sure if you are supplement feeding in 2 weeks' time, you need to come and check. Anything that's left over needs to be removed. And I assure you there'll be a lot more eggs and a lot more larvae available in your hive, seeing as you've given them pollen. All right.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Have a good Sunday. Cheers for now.